My name is Emily Parker, and I have been married to my husband, Daniel, for 7 wonderful years. Our marriage, like any relationship, has had its ups and downs, but at the core of it, we share something rare, a deep, unshakable bond built on respect, friendship, and love. Looking back now, there's one night that stands out above so many others, a simple evening with friends that taught me the true meaning of partnership and reminded me why I married Daniel in the first place. It all started on a Friday in late summer. The warm air carried the faint smell of freshly cut grass, and the golden sunset painted the sky as if nature itself had dressed up for the evening. Daniel had been talking all week about having a small get-together with his closest friends from college. They hadn't seen each other in months, and he wanted to host them at our house. "Are you sure you're okay with this, Em?" Daniel asked me as we sat together on our porch that morning. His hazel eyes sparkled with excitement, but there was a hint of concern in his tone. I smiled, brushing a strand of hair out of my face. "Of course I am. They're friends, but they're my friends too. It'll be fun." The truth was, I enjoyed spending time with Daniel's circle. His best friend, Mark, had the kind of humor that could light up any room. Chris, the quiet one, had a thoughtful way of speaking that always made me feel like I learned something new. And then there was Jason, who was the life of the party, always ready with a story, usually embarrassing, about their college days. Still, I wanted the evening to feel special, not just for them, but for Daniel too. I decided I'd put in extra effort to make our home welcoming, cozy, and memorable. I spent the day cooking and preparing. I made Daniel's favorite buffalo chicken dip, baked sliders that could feed an army, and even tried a new recipe for mini cheesecakes I had found in a magazine. As the kitchen filled with aromas, I hummed softly, feeling both tired and satisfied. Daniel helped, of course. He spent most of the afternoon cleaning the backyard, stringing up fairy lights, and setting out the fire pit. He wanted it to feel like the casual hangouts they used to have back in college, but with our own little touch of warmth and adulthood. When the first car pulled into the driveway, I peeked out the window and smiled. Mark had arrived, carrying a six-pack of craft beer like he always did. He was followed shortly by Jason, who brought chips, and Chris, who, true to form, brought a thoughtful gift, a bottle of wine for me. The evening started with laughter as they hugged and exchanged inside jokes. I loved watching Daniel in those moments. Around his friends, he was animated, carefree, almost like the boy he once was, but with the wisdom of the man he had become. We all gathered in the backyard. The fairy lights twinkled above us, casting a warm glow, and the fire pit crackled in the cool night air. Music played softly in the background, and conversations flowed as easily as the drinks. At first, I sat back and let them catch up, listening to their stories of old road trips, pranks, and unforgettable nights. They laughed until their sides hurt, and I couldn't help but join in. Even though I hadn't been part of their college days, they never made me feel like an outsider. "Emily," Jason said at one point, grinning mischievously, "did Daniel ever tell you about the time he tried to cook pasta in a coffee maker?" Daniel groaned, covering his face with his hands. "Oh no, not this one again." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink. "No, but please do tell." And so they did, each friend chiming in with their version of the story until I had tears in my eyes from laughing. What struck me most that night, though, wasn't just the joy of laughter, but the way Daniel looked at me. Every time I laughed, he smiled, as though seeing me happy was his greatest accomplishment. Every time I leaned into the conversation, he made sure I was included. It wasn't forced, it was natural. That's who Daniel was, a man who always made me feel valued. As the night went on, the conversations shifted from funny memories to more meaningful ones. Around the fire pit, Mark talked about the struggles he'd been facing at work. Chris admitted he'd been feeling lonely since moving to a new city. Jason shared that he had recently lost someone close to him. The air grew quieter, but it wasn't heavy, it was honest. That's what I loved about this group. They weren't afraid to be real. And Daniel, as always, listened carefully, offering encouragement without judgment. He wasn't just a friend. He was the kind of person who made people feel safe. At one point, as the firelight danced on his face, I realized how lucky I was. Watching him comfort his friends, I saw the same man who had comforted me during my hardest days, the same man who had celebrated my wins as if they were his own. By midnight, the laughter had returned, and the stories grew sillier again. Jason dared Daniel to play a song on the old guitar we kept in the corner, and to my surprise, he agreed. His voice was warm and slightly raspy, and as he sang an old tune, I felt my heart swell. It wasn't a grand, dramatic night. There were no fireworks or extravagant surprises. But it was real. It was love, friendship, and connection all wrapped into one beautiful evening. When the last guest left and we stood together in the quiet backyard, Daniel pulled me into his arms. "Thank you for tonight," he whispered. "You always make everything better." I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "No," I replied softly. "You do." That night, I realized something important. Love isn't always about the big moments. Sometimes it's about sitting around a fire with people you care about, sharing stories, laughter, and maybe a few tears. It's about the small gestures, the way he checked on me, the way I baked his favorite dip, the way we worked as a team to make the night special. It was, in its own quiet way, one of the most heartwarming nights of my life.